Hey guys, it's Tuesday and I'm back. Hey, I want to tell you a story about something that happened to me when I was walking across our parking lot a couple of years ago. I had my computer in one hand and this keyboard just wrapped up, but my grip started to slip. And the keyboard started to fall and the computer started to fall and I was able to catch the computer but the keyboard was not quite so lucky and it took quite a fall. You see, I had my day planned out. You know, I was going to do all this work off campus, probably at Starbucks or somewhere. I had an agenda. I knew what I was going to do. I thought had it all together that day until I lost control. Like, what? Yeah, control. It fell off control. You see, in effect, this humorous illustration, my day didn't get ruined. I was still able to go and get all my work done. But a powerful illustration and thought rushed to my mind when I lost control. You see, the keyboard in my illustration, it represents my life. It represents possibly your life. It represents your work. Perhaps you've been sitting for the past 5 weeks at home doing your work, thankful to one of these. Your finances, you're balancing your budget. Possibly you're doing online banking from this. Communications, you're talking to your friends, you're getting on Facebook, you're commenting, your entertainment. What are you looking at Netflix? You're possibly doing it through this. You're making future plans, you're calendaring. All of this is coming through here. And look what happened to my life. I lost control. You see, what happens in our life when we lose control, or if we lose the control we thought we even had to begin with? You see, Proverbs 19:21 says this. It says, "Many are the plans in the mind of a man, but it is the purpose of the Lord that will stand." And at the end of the book of James, in James chapter 4, James ends a thought by saying this: "Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will live and do this or that." You see, most of us are guilty of living like we have it all together, right? Like we have it all figured out. Like we know what the next 5, 10, 15 years until retirement really look like. We've got it mapped out. We are in control. At least we think we're in control. But what happens when we lose control? What happens when a job's lost or we're laid off? What happens when the stock market drops? What happens when the spouse says they want out? What happens when a loved one tragically dies? What happens when we lose control? How will you react? How will you keep going? How will you adapt? You see, I simply want to encourage you real quick from these words of Jesus towards the end of the recognizable Sermon on the Mount from Matthew. In chapter 6 particular, he says this in verse 33, he says, "But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all of these things shall be added unto you. Therefore, don't be anxious about tomorrow, for tomorrow will be anxious for itself. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble." You see, it reminds me this past Sunday, Pastor Robbie taught about the encounter that Jesus had with Thomas after Jesus' resurrection. You see, Thomas said, unless I can see the marks in his hands and put my finger there and the marks on his side and put my hand there, he said, I'll never believe. And then you read on and it says 8 days later, they were in a room eating dinner together. And all of a sudden it says, Jesus shows up. And he turns and he looks at Thomas and he says, Thomas, look, put your finger here. Thomas, look, put your hand here. And then he said to Thomas, you believe because you've seen. He said, but blessed are those who haven't seen, but yet still believe. You see, Thomas had gotten so focused on his world, what he was in control in, what I can see, what I can experience, I'll believe. But Jesus was calling him to have faith. You see, Jesus in Matthew, he was teaching about we need to have a constant in perspective. That all of us should have this. This constant is that God will never change. He told them what was going to happen. He never will change. And often we place our confidence, we put our faith, we put our hope, we put our joy on these elements of creation, possibly the stock market, our finances, our physical abilities, our appearance, the relationships we have, but they all change, right? I mean, the market does what it wants to. The dollar isn't worth what it used to be, perhaps, or it's worth more. It changed. My physical ability, I can't quite run as fast and as far as I used to. My appearance, I mean, I've got these things, and I got these things, and I got this stuff over here, and I have to wear these. And relationships, I can't keep someone in a relationship. Ultimately, do we have control over anything? You see, if the challenge is if we consistently look to God to be our everything that gives fulfillment, we don't ever have to worry about losing control. Because we'll always live with this understanding that we never really had it to begin with. You see, don't forget this. God is in control no matter what happens. And he cares for you.